I heard a sermon recently on how to deal with an anxious heart. And I learned some really cool insights from this sermon. It was based off of the Sermon on the Mount, maybe Matthew 5 or Matthew 6, which I forget which part. Oh, maybe it was Matthew 6 because it was about prayer. And so many good things were said, but they got to this one technique. And the technique was how they deal with an anxious heart. And I do think it resonates with lots of people, but it did not resonate with me. In fact, the very technique that they use makes my heart more anxious. And I do think they were quoting from Max Lucado, a book about this process or this step. So I say amen. If that's the way that you deal with an anxious heart, cool. But for others like me, there are other ways to deal with it. And I want to share with you the way that I deal with it and compare it to what this preacher shared. So please keep watching and you'll find out about how I deal with it and maybe another new way for you. Hi, my name is Shawn Sommerkamp, and this is Motivationeer Christian Coaching. What this preacher shared was based on taking their prayer deeper. When they start feeling like they have a lot of anxiety, and I can't remember if they specifically said they have one or imagined it, but I think they said they had a big whiteboard and then literally drew a picture of a heart, big heart, with a felt tip marker on the whiteboard. And what they would do inside the heart, they would write out the things that were making them anxious. And they would take however long it would take to write these things out as they recalled them and remembered them. And then one by one, they would hand them over to God. Yes, I'm using air quotes for a reason. They would hand them over to God. And the way they did it was they would just say, hey, God, please take this from me. Take this thing. And then they would say it. God, take this from me. And then they would line it out. And the way this person that was speaking shared it, some of the things on the list, they could just do it very quickly. They write it down. They write all these things down. Now it's time to hand them over. Boop, that's easy, that's easy, that's easy. And they'd line through them quickly. Some weren't so easy, so they'd spend a lot more time praying about it until they feel like they could release it. Now, as I listened to this, my mind computationally, I guess, instantly thought of the ratios of the time spent thinking about the anxiety and the time spent handing it over to God as part of their process. And I thought the way it kind of hit my imagination was with a technique like that, it would be like a 75% time spent on writing out the actual anxiety and 25% of the time handing it over to God. Literally, we would be focused on the anxiety. That would not work very well for me. Writing them out would make me more anxious, literally, because I'd be kind of reliving it. And spending that much time thinking about anything that makes me anxious, specific things like my child likes to play a lot. I don't know if I can, spend as much time playing as my little boy wants to, but I'm really anxious about this, God. Or I'm looking for this job. I haven't been able to find one in a while. I'm really anxious about this. Or I have an issue with the relationship at church, a brother or a sister, and it's tense, or finances, you name it. Ultimately, what I do to deal with the anxiety is not focus on the anxiety, but focus on the anxiety remover. So this is the technique I use. I literally visualize, as it describes in Revelation 21, I think, I might be missing that up. I'm not going to take the time to look at it, but I think it's in Revelation 21, could be wrong, where it pictures this giant crystal sea, this flat, motionless body of water that looks like reflective crystal. And I picture standing at the edge of it and looking across that sea, and seeing this magnificent throne of God, this light coming from the throne, God sitting on the throne, it being brilliant. In fact, this image I always have, I don't know why I have this particular one, but it's just so peaceful to me. It's kind of like dusk. So there's like a soft reddish, orange, purpley glow in the sky, and then across the sea is God. And I start walking across the sea with this little box, my box of anxieties. I can shake it. I know there are anxieties in there, but I don't think about the anxieties. What I'm thinking about is I get to go before the Lord and give him my anxieties because he said so. I think this is 1 Peter 5. Oh, I always forget this. Man, I'm sorry. I'm going to have to look this one up. This one's important. And that is, yes, 1 Peter 5, 6, and 7. So with my anxieties in my box, I walk across this crystal sea, and as I approach God, the excitement to be there with him starts to build. And when I get to him, the way I envision it is him leaning forward excitedly to take this box from me. But then I am extending my arms to give the box to him. And then it changes, but from time to time, I think of him saying, "Hey, I got this, Shawn. Thanks for bringing it to me. You go on, you'll be good. Be at peace." Like a well done, I just can't wait to hear that well done, good and faithful servant. Hopefully I will if I live out my salvation with fear and trembling. That is one of the ways I deal with my anxiety. I say it like that because what I'm doing is really refocusing my attention to God instead of the thing that's making me anxious. I think that's why there's so many passages in the New Testament teaching us what to think about. I think it's Colossians 3, set your mind on things above, not on earthly things. The Matthew 6 segment, do not worry. This is, they list out, I think that's what the sermon was about, listing out all those things that we get worried about, anxious instead of trusting in God. Philippians 4, whatever is true, pure, noble, admirable, excellent, praiseworthy, think about those things. And many more. Isaiah 26, 3, you will keep in perfect peace him whose mind is steadfast on the Lord. Another technique I use is just simple deep breathing. When I realize I've got some fluttering going on in my heart's racing a little bit, I just stop and do a very simple breathing technique. There are lots of them I talk about on my channel. You can look up any that you want, but I use a one called 3-2-1 centered breathing where I'm slowly breathing in, slowly breathing out. And as I do, I say the number 3, 3, 3 as I exhale. And with my eyes closed, I picture that number kind of blinking in front of me. Then I take a slow, deep breath in. As I exhale, I say the number 2 3 times and then the number 1 3 times. And that activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which calms us down. Another thing that I believe for me is really important is prevention of the anxiety. And that's making sure I'm getting the right amount of rest. Our bodies require rest. The God of all creation rested on the seventh day. This is a little hint to us working nonstop. It's not good for our bodies, or in my case, I'm saying for this message, the brain. And another one for me is food. I did a video on this channel called Sugar Shortens Your Fuse. Man, if I want to prevent anxiety from happening, I get rid of sugar. If I want to spark up an anxious mindset or anxious feelings, I'll go eat a bunch of sugar. It's just really not great for us. I think it's kind of like poison. Do the research. Eating sugar isn't good. So ultimately, when it comes for me to deal with an anxious heart, I don't focus on the things making me anxious in an exercise, even writing them out. If I journal, which I think journaling is a very huge thing, I journal about God and what it will be like to meet him and the peace that he gives me, what I have found in his word, not focusing again on the anxiety. The best thing to do for people like me, and hopefully this will be beneficial to you, is to really use our visualization to focus on things above, on God, not on earthly things. Get the right amount of rest, the right amount of sleep, and then learn some very good deep breathing techniques. It also won't hurt to be more fit in our lives physically, doing some exercise. These are my techniques. If you have one that works very well for you, please share it below. And if you disagree with me, you can share it below as well. I welcome all feedback. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for 2 new videos each week. Tell me in the comments below about your career situation, and I'll make a video for you with a shout out. You can also become a member at Motivationeer.com. Your career is not just a way to make a living, it's a way to transform the world.